Hello, third graders. Welcome to our animal lesson today. So we are going to start off by reviewing some of the things that we have learned so far, and then we are going to dive into our new vertebrate classification, reptiles, today. So let's start with some of the things that we have learned. We're going to play a little game, see if you can answer these questions before I do. I am an animal whose body temperature is maintained by my surroundings. It is not constant. What am I? What is that called when an animal has to maintain its body temperature by its outside surroundings? You should say a cold-blooded animal. Remember, cold-blooded means their body temperature changes with their surroundings. All right, let's try another one. I am an animal whose body temperature is a constant temperature and does not depend on the temperature of my surroundings. What am I? What do we call those animals whose body temperature stays the same and does not change? You should have said a warm-blooded animal. Remember, you and I are warm-blooded animals. Our body temperature always stays the same. All right, let's try another one. I am an animal with a backbone. What am I? You should have said a vertebrate. Remember, animals that have a backbone or a spine are called vertebrate because we have a vertebrae running down our backbones with our spinal cord in the middle. I am an animal without a backbone. What am I? That one should help you. We should have said an invertebrate. Remember, we talked all about invertebrates and arthropods. Those are those animals with outer coverings or exoskeletons that help to support them. I am an aquatic animal with gills, fins, and I have a body covered in scales. What am I? What classification of animals are aquatic with gills, fins, and body covering of scales? A fish. You should have said a fish. All right, let's keep going. I am an animal that can live both on land and in water. What did we call that classification of animals that lives both on land and in water? In fact, that's what that word means. You should have said an amphibian. Remember, amphibians are born in the water. They have gills. As they grow up, their gills get covered with skin, they develop lungs and legs, and they move to land. I am the larva that hatches from the egg of an adult female frog. What is that beginning stage of the female frog called? Or a frog? You should have said a tadpole. Remember, a frog starts off as a tadpole, and then that tadpole, as it's swimming, it starts to develop those legs, the lungs, and eventually becomes an adult frog who lives on land. I am the process by which some young animals develop and drastically change from their infant forms into their adult forms. What am I called? What's that process when animals change, like the tadpole changes into the frog? That one's a little trickier. That's called metamorphosis. Remember, metamorphosis is the changing of an animal from infant to adult where it's completely different. Same thing with caterpillar to butterfly, completely different looking animal. All right, let's go ahead and just review. Remember, amphibians is what we had talked about. Those were those animals that have two different worlds. They begin with being in the water and then they go to land. And today we're going to talk about a group of animals that many people confuse with amphibians. But this group of animals does not live in the water and on land like an amphibian. The group we're going to talk about today is the reptile group. So let's talk a little bit about reptiles. Open up your reading packet that's in your animal notebook. Go ahead and get your reading packet out so you can kind of follow along with me. You can underline important information. We're going to go ahead and open that up to our page 62. You're going to see reptiles at the top there, and follow along with me. So reptiles are cold-blooded, just like amphibians, cold-blooded. Reptiles live on land and in the water, but even the reptiles that live in the water most of the time breathe with lungs. Reptiles have lungs from the time they are born, not gills like amphibians. So there's a big difference. Reptiles are born with lungs, not gills. Reptiles are vertebrates. They have those backbones. They're cold-blooded, meaning their body temperature changes with their outside temperature. They have to go out in the sun to get warm or go under a rock to stay cool. And here is an example of a reptile, a snake. Notice that the skin of this snake looks a lot different than the skin that we talked about with amphibians. Most reptiles have thick, dry, scaly skin. Think about amphibians. Remember, they had that moist, wet, smooth skin, and thin, but reptiles are thick and dry skin that's scaly. Reptiles are known for molting or shedding their skin. Reptiles shed their skin several times during their lives. Snakes, for example, shed their skin in one big piece. You might have even come across a skin from a snake. They do this when they grow too big for their current skin. So you might, like I said, have come across where a snake has shed its skin, and you can see that, but all of the reptiles shed their skin. So again, they do not breathe through their skin like amphibians. It's hard, dry, and scaly, the opposite of what an amphibian was. They use their lungs only to breathe, and a lot of times they live in drier places than an amphibian, okay? They don't stay underwater. They have to come to the surface. So let's look here. Here's another example of a reptile. Look at his scaly skin. This is a chameleon. So you can see his scaly, dry skin. And here is a lizard of some sort that is molting. You can see his layer of outer skin is coming off. He has gotten too big. He's grown, and that layer comes off as his new skin is underneath him. So this process is called molting. All reptiles hatch from eggs. Okay, well, that's the same, but they hatch from eggs. Most reptile eggs are leathery and tough. Okay, so think of a leather couch. It's very tough. Most reptiles dig a hole and lay their eggs in it. They don't lay them in the water. They dig a hole in land, lay their eggs in it, and then they cover up the eggs to protect them and hide them. Then they leave the eggs. They don't stay with them. They don't lay on top of them and keep them warm. When the young reptiles hatch, they look just like their parents, not like an amphibian where they look completely different. Baby reptiles look just like mommy and daddy reptiles. And these reptiles, when they hatch, can take care of themselves right away. Okay, so they have that leathery skin. Here is a salamander, maybe. Nope, that would be an amphibian, some sort of a lizard here, who is laying its eggs, covering them up under the dirt. You can see they're hard. And then this lizard is going to leave, and those eggs are going to hatch on their own. Now, there are a few snakes and a few lizards that do give birth to live babies instead of laying eggs, but that is very rare. Most reptiles lay their eggs in a nest on land, cover them up, and leave them. And here is a baby alligator coming out looking just like mommy and daddy alligator. So baby amphibian or baby reptiles look a lot like their parents. They do not go through metamorphosis. They do not have gills. They have lungs when they are born. Many different types of animals are classified as reptiles. These include animals such as crocodiles, alligators, turtles, snakes, and lizards. So here is a chameleon lizard and probably a tortoise. This looks more like a tortoise here. Tortoise and turtle. Turtles and tortoises are the only reptiles with bony shells as part of their skeletons. And we'll look at that. Here's another alligator. Here is that bony shell as part of their skeletons. Their backbones are actually inside that skeleton. So under this shell is where their backbone is actually found. So these two animals, a turtle and a tortoise, have bony shells that is part of their skeleton. All right, here are two here. Let's look at these. This top picture is the salamander, and a bottom picture is a lizard. Look at the difference between these two animals. So some of the things that I notice are the same. Well, they both have 4 legs. They look very similar in their body shape and their tails. But let's look closely at their skin. Do you see that this skin of that salamander is very wet, moist, and smooth? And this lizard is very scaly and dry. So that's a big indicator that this salamander is an amphibian. This lizard is a reptile. All right, you are going to watch this week a video all about snakes and a review video all about reptiles. So let's just wrap up. What is the things that make a reptile special or classified? Well, has to have hard, scaly skin, right? It's a vertebrate. It has, it lays its eggs on land. It breathes with lungs. And the babies look just like the mom and the dad. All right, we will take some notes, watch a couple more videos, and continue to learn all about reptiles.